Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Kiwi Lads channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing my preview for the upcoming match between the Springboks and the Wallabies that is going to be taking place on Sunday. But if you do enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. But nonetheless, let's get straight into this preview. Right, so this match is going to be kicking off at 10:05 PM New Zealand time, which will be 12:05 PM in South Africa on the Sunday afternoon for this match at Seabus Super Stadium. Should be an absolutely awesome match between these two sides. The lineups were announced a little bit earlier on. The Springboks actually announced their side on about the Wednesday or Tuesday, I believe it was, so very early on. But that just meant that we were going to be able to think about the miniature battles that will be taking place on this field just that little bit longer and let our minds run wild with who we think the Wallabies were going to select, and they have selected their side. Couple surprises in there, but we will be going through both the sides, looking at the changes from the last match for both of these teams, and then looking at how they compare in terms of the stats. Also, previous encounters a lot. We are going to be doing it in this preview, so sit back, relax, and hopefully you do enjoy the show. And nonetheless, we will get straight into it. Now we will look at the lineups a little bit and look at the changes that both sides have made. The last match, the Springboks, they were able to get the win 29 points to 10 over Argentina for their second match of the Rugby Championship. They were also able to beat them the week prior, and that was 32 points to the 12. So both games they were able to have a solid performance, and they were able to receive the bonus point for one of those two encounters, which does leave them in second at the moment on the Rugby Championship table on 9 points. But all it takes is one extra bonus point or a loss for one of these sides, and all of a sudden the championship could be going to a different side, which is why the Springboks, I feel they'll really bring that intensity in this game. And I feel like it's going to be a very physical encounter because of the fact the Springboks, they have gone with the 6-2 split on the bench, and anytime that they do that, you know that they're absolutely going to be going for it for the last 20 or 30 minutes, and that is why the Wallabies, they need to make sure that they start this match well, or else it could be a little bit of a runaway for the Springboks. But we will have to wait and see. But like I mentioned, starting lineup for the Springboks, a whole new front row for the Springboks in this match. But I mean, Stephen Kitsoff, Frans Maharba, and also Bongi Umbonambi. The one thing I would say about Bongi Umbonambi is maybe that line-out throw wasn't going his way in the last match up against the Pumas because of the fact that Malcolm Marx, at the stage of Bongi Umbonambi coming on the field, he was sitting at about 14 from 14 line-out throws. And then unfortunately for Umbonambi, his first one wasn't straight, but he is still a very talented player. And he actually scored a try in one of the more recent matches up against the Wallabies, and that was off a rolling maul. So perhaps that could be what they go for in this match, the Springboks. If they do get a couple penalties over early, I have a good feeling that they will continue to pour on that pressure, go for the corner, and really try and get that rolling maul going and work their way towards that bonus point. Looking at the locks now, they have got Eben Etzebeth. He is going to be back in the starting lineup. He did have a rest for the last match, which did mean that Marvin Ori was going to be the man who was starting, but now it is going to be Etzebeth and Lou Diaga. And Etzebeth, when they announced the side, I said that he would really give Darcy Swain a bit of a headache in this game because of the fact that he is a very talented, very physical player, Etzebeth, and Darcy Swain, he is still young, but maybe Dave Rennie heard me because of the fact he's actually taken Darcy Swain completely out of his starting lineups and reserves, and instead has decided to give the start to Isaac Rodda. So that is going to be a very good battle to watch in that number 4 jersey, Eben Etzebeth versus Isaac Rodda. I think I know who I would be giving that one to if it was up to me, but unfortunately for the Wallabies, it is not Isaac Rodda. Now looking at the loose forwards, they have only got the one change in those loose forwards. Franco Mostert once again going to be starting at 7, the captain Khaleesi at 6, and then number 8 was Jasper Wiese in the last match, and he's actually had 2 very good games in a row at this stage, Jasper Wiese, in terms of the amount of carries that he's had, the amount of defenders that he has been able to beat throughout the 2 matches. I believe the first match up against the Pumas was his better of the 2, but still very solid in the second game. But instead, he has to make way because the return is upon us. It is going to be Duane Vermeulen. The last time I saw him play, I believe it was part of the Rainbow Cup South Africa. He was playing for the Bulls, and that was actually when he ended up getting his injury, if I'm not wrong. And the thing with Duane Vermeulen is unless the leagues give out, that man is not going to stop running at you. And that is what the Wallabies will have to be extremely careful of. They've got Swinton, they've got Hooper, and they've got Valentini. All 3 of those men are going to have very good performances because Duane Vermeulen, the way that he can play, he could run rings around all 3 of them if he gets the chance, because he is just physical. He is a dominant presence when it comes to that breakdown as well, which is exactly what the Springboks will want to enforce early on in this match up against the Wallabies. But welcome back to Duane Vermeulen, away from home as well for his first game back in the Springboks kit. He did miss the whole of the British and Irish Lions tour and also the 2 matches up against the Pumas. Now he is returning onto Australian soil, and the big thing here is the last 5 games played in Australia. Australia have won 4 and they have drawn 1, although the last game of that stat, I believe, was in 2018, And since then, of course, we know the Springboks, they have just turned it up to a new level. They have won the World Cup, they have won the British and Irish Lions Tour, they are looking strong in the Rugby Championship so far. And this is actually going to be their first game away from South African soil since the World Cup. So this is going to be an interesting matchup to see whether or not that does affect them. There is going to be a crowd as well, which is going to be pretty awesome since all of the British and Irish Lions Tour was unable to do so. But this game, hopefully it will be a sellout, and there should be well and truly some Springbok supporters and also plenty of Wallaby supporters in the stands for this game. But looking at the next return, if you didn't think that Dwayne Vermeulen was a big enough one, we've got Faf de Klerk. He is going to be returning in the number 9 jersey. We did see him get injured in the second game of the British and Irish Lions Tour, I believe. So that has been a few weeks off for Faf de Klerk, but now he is back and he will be ready to go in their number 9 jersey. Cobus Reinach nowhere to be seen in the starting lineup or reserves. And also Jaden Hendrickson, after taking that big hit from Marcos Kremer, is nowhere to be seen at this stage either. But instead, Herschel Yankee is also going to be returning to the side. And that is going to be who is in that number 22 jersey for the Springboks in this one. Then the next change in the lineup, it is going to be in the number 14 jersey, and it is going to be Nkosi who will be added into the lineup rather than Cheslin Colby, who at this stage is actually injured. So he will be hoping that that isn't going to be too long of an injury, because he would have absolutely loved the challenge of being able to mark up with Marika Koromberi. But instead now Nkosi, he has got a ton of pace, a ton of acceleration, and because of that, I give that speed advantage to him well and truly. But Marika Koromberi, he is no slouch when it comes to the 100 metres. He is very quick as well, but he has also got that power. He's got a frame on him, Marika Koromberi. I'm getting too excited about this match at the moment. I'm doing all sorts of weird things, but I'm just too excited for this game, and it is only a couple days away, or maybe one day away when this video comes out as well, which is even more exciting. My fingers are just going all over the place, but that's going to be a good battle out on that side with Nkosi going up against Marika Koromberi. So that is all of the changes in the starting lineup for the Springboks that they have decided to go with in this match. Now we look at the Wallabies, and they have also got quite a few changes, including this man at number 1. It is going to be Angus Bell. Now he hasn't actually had too many starts for the Wallabies so far, if not, maybe only just the one, if even that. So he is going to have a challenge here up against Frans Mahorba, who is just an absolute beast out on the field. But Angus Bell, he is not a small individual. I believe he is about 6'5", Angus Bell, if I'm not wrong. So that will be extremely awesome to see those two on one side of the scrum. And on the other side, it is going to be Stephen Kitsoff going up against Alan Alalatawa. So I've mentioned the two props in the number 2 jersey. Folau Fainga'a, he is getting another opportunity for the Wallabies to start this one. He actually scored a try last week up against the All Blacks as well. The only forward to do so in that last match, and it wasn't actually off a rolling maul. And I'm wondering whether or not the Wallabies will try and go for that rolling maul up against the Springboks, because we have seen the Springboks rolling maul defense is extremely solid. But then saying that, the one try for Argentina was kind of scored off that rolling maul, couple phases, and Pablo Matera was able to find his way over the try line for the first time in those matches for Argentina in the 86th minute of that second game as well. But that is the front row that the Wallabies have gone with. Then Isaac Rodder is going to be in that number 4 jersey, like I mentioned a little bit earlier on, replacing Darcy Swain. Then the next change for the Wallabies comes in the number 10 jersey. Now, I know that this one splits opinions. Quade Cooper is back in that number 10 jersey for the Wallabies. I think a lot of people have been asking for it for a little while, because Noel Alessio, unfortunately for the youngster, he just hasn't quite been able to handle some of the pressure that comes with some of those important moments for the Wallabies in those last couple of games. So he has been taken out of there. He was actually, overall, other than the kicking tee, I thought he was doing pretty decently in terms of the way that he was setting up the back line with a couple of those nice line breaks. But then with the Wallabies in the last 3 matches up against the All Blacks, they have given away 5 intercept pass tries. Not all of them were Noel Alessio, of course, but that is something that the Wallabies need to make sure that they get right in this game. They can't afford to be doing lobby passes, or else the Springboks, the likes of Mapimpi, the likes of Nkosi, will just rush up and be able to take that ball. Even Lucanio or Damien Dialende might be able to get an opportunity to intercept that one. So they've got to be careful. They've brought in Quade Cooper. Now, one of the reasons I think they have decided to go with Quade Cooper is maybe Noel Alessio being so young, he might have been feeling just a few too many of those nerves, because of the fact that if he doesn't get it right, he may have felt like he may not have gotten a spot back in that starting lineup. Quade Cooper, he is pretty experienced, and he will be one of those players who might try a little kick in behind if he sees an opportunity. Might be more inclined to hit the ball up at the South African defence, even though he will probably get driven backwards 1 or 2 metres by some of those big forwards at least in that situation. But I think he might just have a little bit more of a dynamic game when it comes to the kind of style than Noel Alessio, which is what Dave Rennie will be looking for here, who will be looking for not just Tate McDermott to hit it up round the side of the breakdown, even though that will be a very tough day at the office up against the Springboks. I think they want to make sure they continue getting that go forward, because up against the Springboks, you can't afford to keep on getting pushed backwards, or else they will keep on doing it till you get to the goal line. You've really got to try and break that line nice and early in your phases. But something that I did see from the last time these two sides played in Australia. It was actually the fact that both sides were really able to get some good phases together. So I'm thinking in the early stages of this game, it's going to come down to those penalties. Who is going to be able to win those not releasing penalties in the breakdown? And then from there, what can they do with the opportunity with the ball in hand? In those 3 games up against the All Blacks for the Bledisloe Cup, the Wallabies actually had over 60% possession in all 3 of those matches. Now, if they could do that up against the Springboks, that would be very fortunate for them, but I think more than likely this game will be around that 50-50 mark, maybe slightly in the favour of the Wallabies. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that the Springboks in their last few games have been going for quite a few kicks. So maybe if the Wallabies can end up claiming a few of those kicks and starting to put a few phases together, that might just bump a little bit of the possession in their advantage. And I think the longer they hold onto the ball in this game, the better, because at any stage, if you take your foot off the gas up against the Springboks, they will make you pay, and you need to make sure that you don't let them run away with that game, because we know that in the last 20 minutes, I'm just going to read through their bench very quickly. Malcolm Marx, Ox Nashe, Vincent Koch, Marco van Staden, Quaka Smith, Jasper Veza, also Herschel Yankees and Damian Valenza, 6-2 split. Those guys who are coming off the bench, the likes of a Jasper Veza, also a Quaka Smith, they will be fresh and ready to go when they do get the opportunity. But then the Wallabies, they have got a few good names off the bench as well. Just to mention a few, they have got Taniela Tupou, who will be a good player to watch out for. Rob Leota having a very good season for the Rebels as well throughout Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. Pete Samu, dangerous ball runner. Nick White. Now, he is actually a player in this game that I think could be a little bit of a sneaky one that not too many people are thinking about, but we saw in that last game up against the All Blacks, Tate McDermott, I actually nicknamed him the Sniper because he was able to just pierce that gap right next to the breakdown. It may be a little bit more tough to do up against the Springboks because of the fact that they have got those big forwards who like to sit right next to that breakdown. And if you try and go around the side, they will go, you know what? Have some of that. But we did see in that game with Nick White in 2019, it's a wee while back, but it's a perfect example of that. And it was when the Wallabies were able to get the win at Optus Stadium over the All Blacks. We saw Nick White just having an incredible amount of carries, and every time he would keep himself going forward, and then if he was able to find that pass on the outside, it ended up luring in just a couple more defenders to go next to that breakdown, and then from there it opened up the opportunity for the players a little bit wider. And in this one, Reece Hodge, we know that he can kick a long ball. If he gets an opportunity from inside of his half, he will be going, yes please, I will be having myself another one of those, because he has got a massive boot on him, and because of that, could be a very good asset to have later on in the match for the Wallabies, if it is a close game, that is. And then he will be able to possibly secure them some very crucial points later on in this game. And then Jordan Petaia didn't really get too much of an opportunity up against the All Blacks in the last match, but still a very talented player for the Reds, returning from injury very recently after an injury in Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, or late in Super Rugby AU, I think it was, that he did end up getting injured, but he is going to be ready to go again. The other names that I haven't mentioned on the bench of the Wallabies is Feleti Kaitu, plays a lot of his rugby at the Western Force throughout Super Rugby, likes a little bit of a rolling maul as well, and that is one thing that both sides I think will go for throughout this match. And I'm still trying to work out in my head who will go for more rolling mauls, because of the fact the Springboks, they are very capable of just being able to tap over the three. The Wallabies, not so much in the last couple games, but with the change of kicker, it will probably more than likely be Quade Cooper, or maybe even Tom Banks puts his hand up for that one, but I think more than likely it will be Quade, and he is a decent goal kicker at times as well for the Wallabies. So I think it will be a battle with the threes for a little bit, and then it will just be all of a sudden someone will flick the switch. That was a terrible flick. Now is the time to really try and go for the corner. Maybe it could be down to who ends up with a yellow card, because we have seen quite a few cards throughout this Rugby Championship so far, so it will be interesting to see whether or not we have one in this game as well, up against the Springboks and the Wallabies. It's going to be a physical matchup, like I've mentioned many times, and that is why I know that there's going to be some sore bodies after this match, and then they're going to play again next week. They're going to be playing the exact same opponents for the next week. That game is going to be on a Saturday, so they'll only have around 6 days to recover after this game, which is probably why we are seeing quite a few changes for these sides, to really give a few players a rest, but then to also have them ready for the game next week to see how they go in the rematch of the one that is going to be taking place on Sunday. So those are the starting lineups. Now we will look through a few of the stats to do with the head-to-head between these two sides. Now, like I mentioned, the Springboks, they have played the Pumas twice. The Wallabies have played the All Blacks twice. Now, looking over to some of the stats in this match, you can see that the Wallabies have actually scored more tries than the Springboks. They have been able to score 6 tries to the 5 of the Springboks, but the Springboks, they have been able to score 61 points compared to the 43 of the Wallabies. But that is down to, of course, a lot more penalties and a lot more conversions going over for the Springboks in that regard. You look at some of these other stats, though. Meters carried, it is 1,143 for the Wallabies compared to the 710 for the Springboks. But it just shows that even though the Wallabies have had a lot more running meters than the Springboks, they have only been able to get that one extra try compared to the Springboks side. Clean breaks, they have actually only had 5, the Springboks, compared to the 21 of the Wallabies. 37 defenders beaten for the Springboks, 39 defenders beaten for the Wallabies. 27 offloads for the Wallabies compared to the 4 of the Springboks. Now that is a stat that is sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment. And that means that the Wallabies, they may just try and avoid that breakdown as much as possible because of the fact that the Springboks, we know how good their loose forwards are at getting those turnovers. One, the likes of a Dwayne Vermeulen returning, Franco Mostert as well. He is in some great form at the moment. So it is going to be one of those ones that the less amount of times that the Springboks get an opportunity in the breakdown, the more ball that the Wallabies will have and the more offload opportunities that they will have and more attacking opportunities at that as well. But now one more stat that I am going to talk about as well, 4.7 metres for the average game for the Wallabies, and it is a 4.33 metres for the average gain of the Springboks, so very even in that regard. We did see in the comparison between the All Blacks and the Pumas, I believe it was something along the lines of 7 point something for the All Blacks and 3 point something for the Pumas, whereas this one is a lot more closer, which is why I'm so excited to see how these two sides match up after not playing each other for at least a couple of years. I believe the last time that these two sides played, it was part of the Rugby Championship in 2019, so it's been a little while. And like I mentioned, since then the Springboks have gone on a tear. They have been able to get quite a few accolades in the last couple of years, even with not playing rugby for quite a long period of time. So the Wallabies, they haven't had the best games up against the All Blacks, but I don't think they're completely out of this contest. And the reason I say that is if they can find just that little bit of momentum early. We've seen from the Wallabies, they've been able to have 2 40-minute performances. We did see in the game last week up against the All Blacks, they did actually score more points in the second half than the All Blacks. They were able to get 21 points to the 20 of the All Blacks in that one. So I'm wondering whether or not they'll be able to have, at the start of the second half, maybe a little bit of a flourish and get quite a few points in a hurry, but then the Springboks once again will be able to shut that down after a little while and also finish the match extremely strong with the replacements in the likes of Jasper Wiese, Quagga Smith, Marco van Staden, and also bringing on Malcolm Marx. I've hardly even mentioned Malcolm Marx yet in this one, but he is absolutely phenomenal when it comes to a line-out throw. Also, the rolling maul, he was able to get a try last week up against the Pumas, because as soon as you give that man the ball and say, give us a straight line out, he will well and truly be able to do so, and then that opens up the opportunity for the rolling maul with the big bok forwards being able to drive their way over the try line, maybe multiple times in this match. But this match, I still can't really give a score prediction for. I seem to not be able to quite work one out in my head, but I feel the Springboks will be able to take it, even though Australia have been able to win 4 out of the last 5 on Australian soil, but it's still a little bit of the unknown. We haven't seen these two sides play in such a long time, and I am looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too. I see that I have been talking for a very long time. We've hardly even talked about player stats. So now, before we end this video, I am going to quickly talk about a couple player stats to do with these two sides. Last match, Lucanio Arm was able to have the most meters carried with 60, but Damien Diolende, he had a lot of carries throughout this match as well. We did have 13 with 5 defenders beaten as well, so very solid from him. Just going to be hitting the ball up all day. But then on the other side, you've got Samu Karevi. Now in the last match up against the All Blacks, this man carried the ball 27 times. And in those 27 carries, he was able to get 97 metres, 4 defenders beaten as well. Absolutely insane the amount of time that that man was touching the ball in his first game back for the Wallabies as well. Was extremely impressive. Now, someone else who was extremely impressive in this game was Tom Banks. Had over 100 metres carried throughout this match and 13 carries. Also a few defenders beaten. And then another man that I will talk about quickly. I mentioned him a little bit earlier on. Called him the sniper in that last match. It is Tate McDermott. He had 91 metres carried. He was able to beat 7 defenders, and he was just very lethal around the side of the breakdown. But in this match, it will just come down to how agile he can be around that breakdown to see whether or not he can pierce a little gap and be able to set up the opportunity for one of those backs outside him. But I have to say, Michael Hooper is another player for the Wallabies that I am looking forward to seeing. I think that they will try and shut him down pretty early in this match. Alongside, I think Quade Cooper will be the other target, because sometimes with Quade Cooper, we have seen in the past, if he gets a little bit of pressure on him, sometimes he just throws that loose pass on the outside, and that will be what the Springboks will want. They'll want to be able to pick that ball up and take it to the try line. But I think Michael Hooper is one of those players. He will know that he will be a target for the Springboks, so he will have to try and work out exactly how to get around that problem and be able to set up opportunities for his side, as he is the captain for this match, and he would absolutely love to be able to get his side a win up against the Springboks side, who are currently rated number 1 in the world, and there is a reason for that. They are a very strong side, and unless you can break that defensive wall down like I mentioned, you are in for a hard day at the office, but we will have to wait and see. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy this preview, like I mentioned on my other preview that I did, it is quite long. I end up just rambling on these, but hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know if this is a little bit too long for a preview, or whether or not you do like this format and would like to see more of it in the future. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.